Hello folks, it's time to do a proper introduction for classic GridZone and talk about some of the things that the two versions of the game have in common. It's interesting to have two versions of the same game, but I think it's justifiable, and I think it'll be kind of fun to do this. So, you know, for the most part, the games have a whole lot in common. The dice mechanics are the same. So the black, white die for the play call table, the yellow die for power factors, or a 6 taking you to the event chart. All that's the same. The D12 for the action chart, still the same. And the power factor die, or the power die, also works the same. When power factor is in favor of the offense, then you roll 2 and take the higher. If it's defense, you roll 2 and take the lower. So all that stuff is familiar between both games. The field reference chart, as you can see, basically the same. Little minor differences between them, but it works the same way. The results are pretty much the same. The layout is pretty much the same. Team sheets. Team sheets are back. I'm very happy about this. The events that necessitated me going to the team cards a couple years ago, I was never real happy about that. Team sheets were always the initial concept for this game, and I'm glad to be able to bring those back. So both versions now have team sheets, and the team sheets work basically the same way, with a couple little minor differences. There are enough differences that we had to make team sheets for both versions, but they are essentially the same. They lay out the same way. The classic version of the team sheets has this extra distribution chart down here, and that's because in the Turf War version, the action charts tell you what players are involved via the matchup mechanics. In this game, you just get one key player per play, typically. And that player dictates the outcome of the play. And sometimes, if it's a defender, if it's an offensive lineman, whatever, you don't necessarily know immediately who caught the ball or carried the ball or whatever. So we have to get ball distribution figured out. And we do that through the player deck. Let's see. The action charts work similarly between the two games. And I know a lot of people will go, really? They do? Because they are different. And as you can see, all the classic, this is all there is for the classic action charts. So it all condenses down to 2 pages instead of 4 separate pages for each offense type or play type. But that's because the Turf War version of the charts takes up twice as much space because of the duality of the matchup mechanics. If you win a matchup, if you lose a matchup, this or this happens. And so the pass offense chart in Turf War takes up a whole page by itself. But here we can kind of condense that down and squeeze it all into a smaller footprint. And what I mean by them working the same way, that's mostly true in terms of offensive and defensive polarity. So in either game, if you roll low, those results on any action chart tend to favor the defense. If you roll high, those results are going to favor the offense. If you're somewhere in the middle, then it depends on the scenario. What kind of play is called against what kind of play, or in Turf War, obviously the matchup between the players that you get. In Classic, it could be what the key player is. Although there are some lookups, so it's not just strictly so. In Classic, the skill levels work a little differently. We'll talk about that in a second. I'll try to stay on point here. So something else that the two new versions have in common is this man down chart. And that just simply means that whenever you see this burst symbol, it'll be followed by either offense or defense. So you know that a player is down on that side of the ball after the play. And so you randomly determine who that is. You can do that with the cards here in Classic. You can do it with a dice roll in Turf War Edition. And then you just roll a chart's not even really necessary because you just know if you roll a 1, there's a 1, he's injured. Anything else, he's stunned, okay? And the stun and injury mechanics have been unified between the two games, so when you switch between the two, it's the same deal. A stun causes a player's ratings to zero out for the remainder of the current possession. So the nice thing about that is you're in the middle of a drive and we get Nate Barnett is stunned, and a couple plays later the drive ends. That stun token goes away. We don't worry about it. He'll come back to full strength on the following possession when he's back out there. Okay? So that's easy. You will no longer have stun tokens over here on the field reference status tracker over here. Now, you still will use this for injuries, but there are fewer injuries. And so when it happens, it's a bigger deal. It affects the player for the entire remainder of the game. His ratings are 0-0-0. In my interpretation, the way I like to play it is that player comes off the field, is replaced by a bench player who is all zeros. That's my default mode. If you wish, you could say, okay, well, the player is playing injured and he's just all zeros, so he's effectively stunned for the whole game, right? If you take that approach, it will simplify your stats because you won't have to write in some generic John Q. Public kind of backup player if you want to track any of those stats, which I don't. But some people do. All right. What else? Where else was I going with that? So the man down chart works the same way for both games. So how's Classic different? Well, first of all, we have different team sheets because of the way the player rankings work. In Classic, there are 7 distinct player rankings. There's this hierarchy as noted by these symbols. So you got your first star, second star, you got your first diamond, second diamond, and then you got your first, second, and third spot. And that's all 7 players. And these symbols, this hierarchy, on the defensive side, it's completely without regard to position. So any player can be your star, and the hierarchy dictates how often that player is involved on a play. Okay? On offense, it's the same deal. 2 stars, 2 diamonds, 3 spots. And for the most part, it can be anybody, but there's a couple restrictions because the quarterback has to be one of the top 3. So he's going to have to be first, second star, or a diamond. You just can't hide your quarterback that much. He touches the ball too often. And then the other restriction is that your best offensive lineman, black diamond, or first diamond, is the highest rank that player can have. All right. And again, that just has to do with how frequently that player can realistically be involved. That's really the only restrictions on offense, as I recall. So, player rankings in Classic are by unit. In Turf War, and this is also true of Second Edition, it's by position. So you can have a star receiver and a diamond receiver. You can have a star running back. You might have another running back who's the diamond. Your linebackers, if you got 3 of them here, you might have star diamond. You'd have a star diamond and spot linebacker on Milwaukee's defense for Turf War Second Edition. That's the same as First Edition. That hasn't changed. But in that expression of the game, The actual positions matter because that's how the logic of the matchup mechanics works, okay? What else? The player deck. So here's the player deck. It's 72 cards. And what this thing solves for you is your key player. On most plays, any play that does not go to the event chart, you'll use this key player spot, which is the top section. It'll tell you which side of the ball the key player is on and what his rank is. So in this case, it'd be Jacob Carroll. You just match that symbol up, and there's your key player for the play. These cards will also give you ball distribution. So let's say Jacob Carroll is the key player on a play, and let's say he adds his 2 run rating to the dice roll, and the result is a gain of 2. And now we need to know, well, who ran the ball? All right, so then we flip a card, and you've got ball distribution here in the middle section. Pass, run, and X. So we know that that was a run play. So we look at the run result here. It's a 6. And we go to the ball distribution tables on the offense's side of the team sheet. Under carries, and in this case it would be Clark. So LaDarren Clark would get the carry on that particular play that Jacob Carroll made happen. All right? And then random player. So there are occasions, particularly like with the man down, stun and injury mechanics, where you need to flip a card and just figure out a random player. You'll already know whether it's a key player or whether the player is on the offense or the defense. You'll already know that part before you make the flip. All right, and that's what those cards do. I'll just lay that one there. And skill levels. So skill levels work a little differently in Classic because they are modifiers to the die roll. So what do I mean by that? So let's go back to our example. Jacob Carroll was the key player on a run play. And let's say it was run versus X. So I roll the die, I got a 4, and then I add his 2. So the final result would be a 6. Okay, run X6 would be that result. Let's say the key player was his equivalent on the other side. So Dave McMillan, let's say we had a pass play, and Dave McMillan over here, who's rated 1-0-1, so he has a 1 on pass, and he's affecting this pass play. So being a defender, he's going to subtract. And so I rolled a 5. So let's say it was pass run 5. Well, now we're going to subtract 1. It's pass run 4. Becomes the final result. And who knows? Maybe that's just the difference in a good play or a bad play or a stop or an incompletion or whatever. So that's how the player ratings, the skill levels, impact the action results in Classic. Okay? I think that's enough preamble. I think we've covered the basics. So, having said all that, let's play a little bit, and you can see all this in action. So, when I looked at the schedule for the AGL, I saw that the opening game of the season, week 1, game 1, is Milwaukee visiting Denver. So we fold the visitor, put them on top. They're on defense, and let's play an exchange or two and give you an idea. So Denver at home, hosting Milwaukee. And Denver has Ingram at quarterback, Dyer at running back. We've got Church and Shepard. As the primary receivers. And I'll go ahead and fill out that part of the score sheet for Milwaukee too. We got Fowler, we got Ray McQuiston, one of the league's premier running backs, a 1-2-2. He can do all kinds of stuff. LaDarren Clark, receiver, and Brandon Giles. That's Milwaukee's section there. Okay, that's all we have to do to get set up. Home team, as always, takes the first possession. And I'll go ahead and flip a card. Our first key player is the star on offense, so there's Jalen Church. And I rolled a 6. We're going to the event chart instead. That figures. E5 is the result. Power factor. Well, the power factors are equal here. They're both 4s. So, it says otherwise, since power factor is not an issue, the stop is made by a random defender. So Jalen Church catches a pass. Can he pick up the next zone or not? He does not, because the event chart says so. And the random defender, it says here, is this second star. So Alexander Stevens takes him down, number 59. Middle linebacker makes that stop. All right, Church and Denver goes nowhere with their opening drive. Now Milwaukee's got the ball. Let's see what kind of damage they can do. Offensive key player, Jeff Fowler. And I rolled another event chart. 10. Flag on the offense, minor. Technical foul, or technical infraction there. So that is an E10. Isn't that wonderful? -1P is what I'm going to write. So, you've seen this in GridZone. If you're familiar with GridZone, you're already familiar with the idea of predominance. So, it works like a half the distance to the goal kind of penalty. And what that means is on a gain of 1, there's a 50% chance it's actually a gain of 0. On a gain of 0, there's a 50% chance it's a safety, because the offense has got their backs against the wall here due to that penalty. All right, it's all abstract, but it gives you that sense, right? So Milwaukee makes a mistake there to open things up. Next play, Jacob Carroll is our key player, 4-4. It's a pass versus pass scenario, and he's going to add +1 for his skill value. Ooh, 13. Not bad. Now, this has on the pass and run charts, there are these lookups. So occasionally, or frequently, I should say, a quarterback or running back or runner's skill value will also be figured into the play. So, in this case, we had 12 plus 1 is 13. So it says here is the quarterback pass rating. These are like true or false statements, right? 1, 2, or 3. Well, yes, he is pass 1. So that's affirmative or true. Complete, 5 points as defender stumbles. So that's the result. Big old 5-point play halfway down the field. And so this begs the question, right? Well, who caught that ball? We'll flip this, and it's going to be LeDarren Clark. 1 through 3 is him, and this was a 2. All right, so LeDarren Clark with a 50-yard reception gets them out of trouble because the defense had predominance. All right, and we keep on going. Now we have a defensive key player in Samir McCoy. Run versus run. McCoy is going to subtract 2 from this result. 4. 6 minus 2 is 4. All right, so this results in, this is run versus run. No gain, the runner's buried, and we have an offensive man down on the play. So there's the stop by number 93, Samir McCoy. All right, so Milwaukee gets 5 points for their first possession. At the end of the first exchange, it's Milwaukee 5, Denver 0. And we still have to do that man down check. So there's a man down on the offense. Who is it? Random player. So let me see. That was on Milwaukee. Oh, it's Jeff Fowler, the quarterback. Got laid out on that play. On a 1, he's injured. It's a 2. He's only stunned, so it won't matter, right? So he's stunned at the end of the drive. He can go back to the sidelines and recover. He'll be fine. We don't have to mark that stun, and we can just move on. Okay, so there. That's all I've got for you for the moment. I'll come back in the second video, and I'll just go ahead and finish this game so you can see a complete game. But I wanted to take the time and talk through a good sort of introductory discussion about Classic and the differences. Okay? See you next time.